live aus dem Dokumentationszentrum für Fluchtvertreibung Versöhnung in Berlin. Talking Humanity. Hunger als Kriegswaffe. Wie gewaltsame Konflikte zu Hunger führen. In Partnerschaft mit dem Global Partnership for Education. Das Human Rights Film Festival Berlin wünscht Ihnen eine spannende Diskussion. Es begrüßt Sie Ihre heutige Gastgeberin Mina Schmidt.
Yeah, good evening everyone, dear guests, dear interested listeners, and dear fellow advocates and fighters for human rights. Good evening and a warm welcome to this panel, which takes place within the program of the Human Rights Film Festival, organized by Aktion gegen Hunger, Action Against Hunger. With everything happening around the world, we appreciate you coming here tonight and, in keeping with yesterday's World Food Day, talking about the hunger crisis in the world. Hunger as a weapon of war. How violent conflicts lead to hunger, being the title of our very interesting panel tonight. And the connection between the topics, hunger and war, is so striking. It's 85% of people who are affected by hunger that live in regions of conflict, being more than 200 million who suffer from acute hunger this time. So, the important issue has so many dimensions which we want to approach tonight, or at least try to narrow down a little. As you've already heard, my name is Mina Schmidt and I'm deeply honored to be your host tonight. It is my privilege to guide our discussion at the intersection of international humanitarian law and politics, examples of crisis regions and how the people there fight and maybe also are able to mitigate hunger. Before we begin, I'd of course like to introduce our incredible panelists, each of whom bring a variety of knowledge and experience to the table. I am sure that we'll have some minutes left in the end where you will also be able to ask our experts the questions that are interesting you. Let's start right next to me, to my left, we have Ludwig Trepte. He's a well-known German actor. He, for example, starred in a recent Tatort, a show which among us Germans is considered German cultural heritage. So you've probably have either seen him there or somewhere else. But not only that, Ludwig is a year-long advocate for human rights, and he actually just returned from South Sudan as an ambassador for a campaign on forgotten crisis called Into Focus. We're really interested to hear more from your observations from South Sudan. But before that, we'd also like to talk to Dr. Helene Mutschler, who is sitting next to Ludwig. She joined the team of Aktion gegen Hunger in March 2023 as managing director. Helene, who holds a doctorate in political science, previously worked for Save the Children Germany and Welthungerhilfe, and she's also got experience around the globe. She says that the climate crisis and ongoing wars and conflict have led to a backlash in the global fight against hunger, which we cannot accept. We're happy to have you here and follow up on that in a bit. And our third panelist here in the room is Alyssa Kesey. She's the program director of the NGO Give Love, founded by Patricia Arquette. You may have been here the last hour as well for the masterclass of the two. Alyssa has over 25 years of experience in development cooperation and humanitarian aid. She's worked with women's groups and farmers to improve food security, increase household income, and establish the first fair trade shea butter cooperatives in northern Uganda, which is pretty cool. And she also is a water, sanitation, and hygiene expert. And then on screen, we should be able to see Suleiman Kensesai sometime. Maybe the technique can give us an insight if that's going to work. But he's supposed to be here as well. He's a country director of Action Against Hunger in South Sudan, where he has more than 16 years of experience in the humanitarian sector. There he is. Hi, good to have you here. Hi. With a focus on project and operations management, including logistics, safety, and security. Right now, Suleiman said that he's especially concerned about refugees from Sudan, who mostly are women and children who do not have basic resources like food, water, and shelter. We are really looking forward to gaining insights into your important work in a bit in South Sudan. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, so a big thank you to all of our panelists again for taking the time out of your busy schedules, especially around the festival, to help us better understand the complex topic of hunger in the context of war. As I already introduced, the topic has many dimensions and so many people are affected. So I'd like Dr. Mutschler, perhaps you can help us set the scene and give us a brief insight into Action Against Hunger, current work on the topic, just like as an introduction. What are current numbers, tendencies? Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we agreed I will be speaking in German, right, and you as well, or should I, is anyone in the room who doesn't understand German? Yeah, okay, so, okay. So, great to have you here. Welcome to our talk, to our panel. It's a privilege to be here and to share with you our work that Action Against Hunger has been doing in this area. Our recent report we published this year showed that 85% of people all over the world who do not have access to food, who are going hungry, living in conflict and war regions and areas. So conflict and war are the biggest drivers of hunger. So if 1 in 10 is worldwide is suffering hunger, most of them live in areas like Syria, like Yemen, in conflict-affected areas. And the effects, and why is it so? Because in conflicts and in wars, hunger is often the deadliest weapon. People die in conflicts, not always because of bombings and shelling. More are dying of hunger because there is not enough food, because they have to leave their homes, they have to flee their fields, they cannot farm anymore, they do not have access to water, they cannot buy food because they do not have jobs if they are living abroad or if they are forced to flee. So no income, no access to farms, and also, so these are kind of side effects, I would say, of armed conflicts. That's one thing. And the other thing is that for ages, like the humankind has a legacy of treating hunger as a weapon of war. And we have witnessed it all over the world in recent years, but also in the past a lot. So if conflict parties are using blockades, if they are using landmines that are put on the fields and stay there for decades, making farming not possible, if humanitarian access is not guaranteed, if even humanitarian workers are targets of conflict, of shelling. So this is where war crimes begin, and this is also unfortunately, things that we are seeing and witnessing all the time. And this is also one of the major drivers, of course, of hunger that is systemically, it's happening strategically and systemically by war parties. So I think that's the most important thing to understand. So 85% live in hunger because of conflict, and they live in those conflict-affected areas. And still, in the year 2023, hunger is used as a weapon of war, although it is prohibited by international law. And we will talk about this later, maybe.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much for this brief overview, for this introduction on the topic, which, it does leave a lot of question open, really. But Alisa, maybe would you perhaps like to add your expertise there as well? Like, what is the impact on food security, among other things, when infrastructure is destroyed during conflict?
So I specifically have spent most of my career working in East Africa. So over time, definitely Uganda has been impacted by the multiple wars in the region. And coming more from as a development practitioner and not someone with a focus on emergency, I have seen over 25 years sort of these protracted conflicts plus climate change leading to more difficult scenarios to respond to with regard to food. And that does include water and sanitation and pollution, but also impact on communities and in the agricultural sector. I mean, it doesn't take very long for farmers and local markets to be destroyed. So that's one aspect that I've seen a lot. And then also the impact on food aid, which is, not as much as it was a few decades ago, but also thinking about local resiliency from a development perspective to aid smallholders and how they mitigate risk.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'd also like to follow up on that a bit later. What I find really interesting about that is that it shows that once again that the crisis cannot be considered in isolation really, but then everything is connected, right? When there is one issue, it does all affect all the other areas. Suleiman, maybe we can, if the connection holds, right now I think you're frozen, but maybe I can ask the question directly to you and we see how that goes. Can you maybe add from your experience here and take us to South Sudan via an example? Because I've also heard that your own personal story is also influenced by the country's battle against civil war on the one side and also hunger on the other.
So, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Maybe we can put a bit louder to the
Okay.
technician.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
So just like what Elena said, quickly maybe I will just take you through what is currently happening in South Sudan, and I will come to my personal story. But like Elena said in the report, giving summary of the report, in South Sudan, people are going hungry because of the protracted localized conflict. And we all know that the parties to the peace agreement, they are really doing well to make sure that the peace process holds. But we still have cattle raiding and intercommunal violence here, which is most visible conflict in South Sudan. And that is causing hunger and malnutrition. As Action Against Hunger, we are one of the key organizations implementing a nutrition program. So if you look at also the IPC data that came out in 2023, we've also seen 6.6 million, which is about 54% of people experiencing acute hunger. We've seen that conflict is also making life very difficult. Of course, we've seen people coming in from Khartoum because of from Sudan because of the conflict, and that is also adding up to the current situation we have in Sudan. As we speak, up to date, we have over 300 people that have crossed refugees and returnees that have crossed from Sudan to South Sudan. So this number is also going to get worse. We've also seen this conflict have made people moving from one location. And this is where I can come now to talk about the impact it has on our programming. So each time we make progress because of this conflict, we're having some setback in our activities, in the gains that we've made. So each time there's conflict, we see large scale of internal displacement. People move to safety. People move to areas where these are beneficial, where they might not easily have access. And if we have to also extend our programs to wherever they go, we see that the operational cost of our programs become very expensive, especially if they were within our reach. So like I said, beneficiaries drop out of program, and this would normally refer to them as defaulters. So you will see that even the progress made in 2021, for instance, as we see now also with the limitation of funding, we've seen that those gains are going down. And of course, this conflict also disrupt farming activities, and of course, the main livelihood of the people, like the cattle are either killed or stolen. We see people cut off from meal supplies. Humanitarian assistance is also difficult. I remember last year in one of the locations in Fangak where we are working, we are not able to take supplies because there were conflict, and the only means of moving the supplies along the river was blocked. So people in those locations really seriously suffer, and that impact have a lot on our program. So coming back to me from my personal experience, when I was growing up, we had war in Liberia, and I have to become a refugee in Guinea, and this was the time I really felt hunger. I knew exactly what hunger meant, because you would go days without even having one meal. we have to try as much as possible at a young age to work for people, but at the end of the day, you cannot get a square meal. So I know exactly when I go to camps where we work, when I see IDPs, I feel exactly what I went through when I was coming up. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your impressive insight on this current situation. I hope you still hear us because now you're back because you were frozen again. But also the insight into your own story, really. Again, there's like so much to touch on, but I also want to give the word to Ludwig. Du bist gerade auch wiedergekommen aus dem Südsudan. Kannst du das, was Suleiman beschrieben hat, also dass die Situation schwierig ist, es wird alles teurer, es gibt ein Setback der Aktivitäten, die vor Ort stattfinden. Sind das Sachen, die dir auch gesagt wurden von den Leuten vor Ort? Was hast du da erfahren? Vielleicht kannst du uns einfach auch mal kurz mitnehmen auf die Reise, die du gemacht hast.
Ja, wir waren jetzt ungefähr eine Woche im Südsudan und das Ganze ist ein bisschen wie ein Puzzlebild für mich. Und man versucht sozusagen von allen irgendwie was in Erfahrung zu bringen und ein ganzes Bild um sich ein ganzes Bild davon dann schaffen zu können. Aber es ist wahnsinnig komplex. Die ganze Situation, das ganze Land ist sehr instabil. Es ist wahnsinnig schwierig, wirklich nachvollziehen zu können, was konkret das Problem ist. Was natürlich klar ist und ein Fakt ist, ist, dass die Menschen dort unter Hunger leiden, dass es kein stabiles Wirtschaftssystem gibt, dass es keine Infrastruktur gibt, dass einfach nichts produziert wird. Und ich habe mir viele Meinungen angehört und die sind ehrlich gesagt auch sehr durchwachsen. Auf der einen Seite wird erzählt, dass es wahnsinnig viel Geld im Land gibt, dieses Geld aber nicht bei der Bevölkerung ankommt. Auf der anderen Seite wird erzählt, es gibt sehr, sehr wenig Geld und der einzige Income ist aufgrund von Öl, was durch dieses Land fließt. Also da gibt es einen Ölkanal, der sich teilt oder geteilt wird mit dem Sudan und der sozusagen wirtschaftlich dort dem Südsudan finanziellen Nutzen bringt. Es gibt aber auch keine Schulbildung und so weiter. Und dahingehend ist es natürlich so, dass wir Organisationen besucht haben, die eben genau das fördern und helfen, den Menschen selbst zu helfen. Es geht um Hilfe zur Selbsthilfe, es geht um das Wissen von Agrarwirtschaft, darum, wie man anfängt, im Prinzip natürlich auch Symptombekämpfung.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Habe ich die Frage richtig beantwortet oder war ich
Ich glaube, es gibt kein richtig und kein falsch, wenn ich sage, kannst du uns mitnehmen auf die Reise, die du gemacht hast. Ja. So switching back.
Ja, ich will mich mal kurz entschuldigen. Ich war jetzt nicht so sattelfest in Englisch. Ich wusste das überhaupt nicht. Dann hätte ich mich darauf nochmal vorbereitet. Also deswegen verzeiht es mir, wenn ich das in Deutsch mache. Bei diesem Thema ist mir das gerade so ein bisschen zu komplex und zu spät.
Deswegen haben wir simultan übersetzt.
Ich hoffe, ihr versteht mich trotzdem alle.
Yeah, so that's why we also have translation. I'm just going to follow back, gonna switch back. If there is again any inconvenience for anybody, just like let us know. And then that's also quite a bit that you've just opened up. Like there's so many also conflicts that affect each other. There's so many things to take into account, really. Now we've just heard two voices speaking about South Sudan, and I want to ask Alisa and Helene if the topics brought up are specific for South Sudan, or the things brought up are visible as well in other conflicts that have also hunger as an issue.
I think in many responses we have, so we are working in more than 55 countries as Action Against Hunger, and lots of our responses are in a humanitarian context, and this is also complex. I mean, there are, of course, sudden onset emergencies that we are reacting to, and then again, there are long protracted crises. People live in refugee settlements and camps for 10 years, for more than 15 years. I've visited Dadaab. I mean, children are born there, and they do not know other places on earth than these refugee settlements. And still, this is also an emergency situation, but it has developmental aspects of it, of course. And only very recently, I visited Moldova, actually, where our small response is helping refugees from Ukraine who crossed the border to Moldova, and who we helped and tried to welcome there. And I think one of the most effective means that we are using is cash transfers, because in contexts where there is an existing infrastructure, where there are supermarkets, so people are coming in and they can get these vouchers, and then they can buy things that they really need, and they know best what they need. And that's how I think their dignity is preserved. And that's really an important instrument. And what was really especially really moving for me to see, two of my colleagues in Moldova were actually refugees from Syria themselves. So they left Aleppo and Idlib when they were young men, and then moved to Turkey and raised there. He went to university and now made a career in our sector. And they are like guys from Syria living in Turkey who are now helping Ukrainian refugees in Moldova. I thought that was really also a bit hopeful, like a sign of hope and ray of light, if you want. So that sounds a bit corny maybe, but it felt like this. So people coming from this incredible, horrible situations, and sharing their experience, and helping others who share similar experiences. So that's one of the examples I can provide you.
I really like the hopeful outlook, really. That's a really nice touch, and also really shows the humanity still that so many people, even though they've went through the worst, can still provide. I love that. Lisa, do you want to add maybe?
Yeah, it would be hard for me to not bring up the Ukraine crisis and the impact that it has had on food security and everyday hunger in sub-Saharan Africa right now, yes. Due to the loss of fertilizer, but also just the rising food prices. So I think for us, we need to look at the many faces of hunger. Over time, it's not a one-time event. And really what I've seen in the last year is just hearing people talk about hunger and eating one meal a day, and really the impact on public health because of this, because it's a very complicated problem. So conflicts in other places can also have, I think it is being used as a weapon of war right now, food and all the exports, especially wheat.
Yes, thank you so much. That's, of course, also something that we're thinking about, and that I also want to give to Suleiman. And actually, the two aspects that you've mentioned, I want to ask: do you also experience the outcome of the Russian-Ukrainian war, Suleiman, in South Sudan, with the grain transports, or is it in South Sudan that you're not that much affected, but you're hearing that from other countries that they are maybe affected?
It has impact in South Sudan, but I also want to talk about also the war in Sudan. So South Sudan, if you look at most of the goods that comes in here, they are either from Kenya, Uganda, and then of course, and where you have the Greater Baragaza and the Upper Nile, all of their stuff used to come from Sudan. Well, with the war now, and these are some of the areas where we are operating, you will see that there is limited stock. recently. There are limited supplies in the field because moving things from Juba to those locations is very expensive. People do not have the means. So the limited food stock or the limited stock you have at the market, in the market is also very expensive. And of course, people do not have the means to even those that have money to procure those things, they see that the price is also very high. But also as an organization, we've also seen this is having impact on us. So supplies that we used to buy at the field level for our programming, we've seen that most of these costs have doubled. So it's even having an impact on our budget. So let alone you talk about people who cannot get square meals. So yes, I want to say the impact of the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine has impact, but I was just trying to also talk about the war in Khartoum, especially for areas that borders with South Sudan and Sudan. Over.
Yes, of course, that also is a really important aspect, like what happens to a country when the neighboring country also is in war, and when the two countries are historically, but also still current, just like really interconnected a lot. Something else that came up that Helena said is cash transfers. Is that something that the people currently would benefit from as well in South Sudan?
So currently, we as Action Against Hunger, we are also doing cash transfer programs, especially in some of these hard to reach area, and we think that is much more because it's much more having impact as compared to the food supply, because also the operational cost of moving supplies to those locations is very difficult. However, there is another side to it. Some of the areas where we also do cash transfer, you cannot find market, like I just said. So it becomes a little bit difficult. So these are some of the discussions we are having. Last week, I participated in a meeting with the cash working group. So these are some of the things we are also looking at in as much as we are doing cash transfer, which is we're looking at the way forward, but we need to also make sure that there is market so that people can access food or whatever they want to procure. So organizations are moving towards that. We are doing that, but we're having challenges in some of the locations where we do not have market. And some of it is also because of this intercommunal violence or conflict. People who have businesses do not want to move to those locations where there is conflict because they are afraid that their items will be looted, or some of them also have access issues because if there's conflict on the road going to those locations, business people are also afraid to invest. So those are things that are also playing. But cash transfer, I think, is one of the programming, the approach that we want to continue in South Sudan. Yeah, thank you.
Ludwig, auch nochmal, um darauf zurückzukommen, was hast du vor Ort für ein Gefühl gehabt, was die hilfreichsten Maßnahmen für die Leute eben gegen Hunger sind? Und da habt ihr ja unterschiedliche Sachen gesehen. Du hast ja auch schon angesprochen, die Selbstversorgung. Was hast du das Gefühl gehabt, hilft den Leuten wirklich?
In Bezug auf Hunger?
Ja.
Puh, das ist schwierig zu beantworten, um ehrlich zu sein. Was ihnen wirklich hilft, kann ich so gar nicht sagen, weil ich das ehrlich gesagt nicht weiß. Das müsste man die Leute vor Ort beantworten lassen. Ich glaube, was eben wichtig ist, ist dafür Sorge zu tragen, dass die Menschen, und das tut man ja mit diesen Projekten, dass die Menschen wissen, was sie wie, unter welchen Bedingungen auch anbauen. Ich meine, auch der Klimawandel spielt dort eine erhebliche Rolle. Und man versucht natürlich auch Sorge zu tragen, dass man Nahrungsmittel anbaut, die in bestimmten Perioden einfach besser wachsen und gedeihen und natürlich dann langfristig auch für eine gute Ernährungsmöglichkeit sorgen. Es geht darum, natürlich auch den Leuten dort vor Ort beizubringen, welche Nahrung natürlich auch die bestmöglichste für ihre Kinder ist, wie man diese zubereitet und so weiter. Ja, ansonsten versucht man natürlich bedingt auch das mit den Gegebenheiten, die dort vorhanden sind, umzugehen. Was man natürlich auch erfahren hat, ist, dass es wahnsinnig schwierig ist, gewisse Dinge anzubauen, ne? Weil einfach gewisse Saatgüter fehlen und so weiter, ne? Die eben auch nicht vorhanden sind. Ja.
Und natürlich auch, wenn es politisch weiterhin fragil ist, ne, dass ja dann, das kommt ja vielleicht auch noch dazu.
Ja, das ist ja klar, das ist das allgemeine Thema, das ist durchaus richtig. Ja. Ja.
So, when it's
Lass mich ganz kurz noch dazu ergänzen, was mir gerade einfällt. Es ist natürlich auch so, entschuldigt bitte, dass weil das natürlich, also ein großer Einfluss meiner Meinung nach hat auch damit zu tun, so hatte ich das aus Gesprächen erfahren mit Menschen, die dort vor Ort leben, die zugezogen sind, eigentlich aus Europa kommen, dass ein großes Problem natürlich eventuell auch natürlich der exorbitante Preisanstieg dort ist. Also Lebensmittel kosten richtig Geld, genauso wie die Miete. Mir erzählte jemand, dass die Miete vergleichbar mit der aus Berlin ist. Ich meine, in einem dritten Weltland, in der man keine Wirtschaftsstrukturen hat und keine Infrastrukturen, in dem man kaum etwas produziert, ist das natürlich wahnsinnig schwierig für diese Menschen, da Möglichkeiten zu haben, sich auch gut zu ernähren. Und das ist natürlich auch wiederum ein ziemlicher Konflikt. Also, wie gesagt, ich bin dahingehend kein Experte, gebe nur auch gerne wieder, was ich erfahren habe und versuche natürlich alle Seiten zu beleuchten. Und ja.
Danke. Ja, danke. Vielleicht können wir das an die ExpertInnen in der Runde auch noch mal geben. Also when you're hearing about the situation and there's so many different levels, the conflict or like the conflict of the last couple of years still has. Do you have the feeling that it's just mitigating symptoms, the work that you do, or is there what are the most effective strategies that you have as Action Against Hunger in addressing these hunger challenges in conflict regions? You already said cash flows, but like really considering the context, the unstable context.
Well, I'd say in humanitarian crisis, mitigating the symptoms is already life-saving. So it's really, that's what it is, and that's what counts in this specific moment. However, I think we try to, especially in those protracted crises and contexts where there is no clear end in sight, we really try to combine also activities and projects that are dealing with livelihoods and that are exploring alternative income sources for refugees, for example, or kitchen gardens where people grow vegetables not only for their own use, but they can sell it on the market and they generate additional income. Or there are also other jobs that and vocational trainings that we are providing. So we try to support in the time of the immediate need. And if the situation allows, and that's not always the case, unfortunately, we try to open up for perspectives for employment and other solutions. And people always, of course, care about the children the most, and they want to be able to send the children to school. And sometimes they need money for this. So through our projects, they can earn a bit of living and then be able to decide where to spend this money, for example. But and sometimes it's cash transfers, sometimes it's kitchen gardens, sometimes it's both. Just to give you like 2 examples for what we are doing. And
yes.
Maybe you have more. And I'm sure my colleague in South Sudan has amazing examples for what can be done as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are right. So currently, our programs that we are running is integrated approach we are using. In as much as we are focusing on saving lives, we also look at the underlying causes of hunger and malnutrition. So in all of our programs, we also do integrated approach. So for instance, if you go to a nutrition site or a health facility where we are running program, we also ensure that we teach people how to do kitchen garden, and that is actually taking effect now. That's a teaching ground where we do like a demonstration, but we're also seeing that people are moving those ideas to a wider community. What also we started doing in South Sudan was also to make sure that we have men into all of the activities, because we used to design our programs leaving the men, we just target the women, the children. But these are the gatekeepers. So we decided to bring them. So we also have men-to-men support group, and they are now working together with the women. So we see some changes. But again, don't forget, I can give an example of one community where we've been working. Almost every other week, you will see young people fighting among themselves. So one of the things that we did in order to protect our programs, our nutrition program, our health life-saving program, was to first engage these young people. We decided to engage them through sporting activities, also having the elders, the community coming in. We started engaging them in economic activities, like teaching them how to make bricks, and wherein at the end of the day, organizations around there will provide. So I'm happy to say, since 2021 in this particular community, we have not seen young people fighting among themselves, because we've really engaged themselves. And also coming to the food, this is now mostly not on conflict, but climate change. We've also seen for more than 4 years, this community, this particular county, have been having persistent flooding. So in this community, people used to grow sorghum as a main food to eat, but sorghum cannot survive in flooded water. So we also came up with innovative ideas to say rice can grow in flooded water, and we just piloted that. And today it is taking a very huge effect. Even at national level, I've engaged the vice president, and we see the government is buying into it. So these are things that we're also seeing to scale up. In as much that we have the conflict, we have food insecurity, but we are also looking for alternative way to resolve this, to solve some of this problem, and to also, I think we believe this will help to minimize the conflict that we have in this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You already opened up an aspect that I really do want to dive in a bit. I'm just gonna want to ask you, Elisa, first, if the things mentioned are also some things that you do in your projects, or if you have another approach on really how to stabilize communities in conflict areas.
Well, we're a very small WASH-focused organization, but we're doing a lot of work with kitchen gardens and in multiple regions. So we've worked with the refugee settlements in Uganda, but also in northern Uganda, and also refugees in Kampala. And I think just cash transfers are the most powerful tool for bringing local resilience, because it allows people to support businesses and gives, a sense of community, right? There has to be a way for people to feel committed to a place and spend money to a place and still have ties to a place. So I think these two interventions are really a positive change. And as you mentioned, moving into closing the gap between humanitarian emergency response, which comes first always, but we're seeing now in many places the emergency development continuum really that gap needs to be theorized and addressed with funding, because that's where, how people make decisions where to stay, livelihoods. And, back in my day, we did a lot of work with gender, and now I work with young men doing kitchen gardens. So, and they're getting younger and younger. So holistic approaches, taking care of the environment and land, and looking also the impact of war on land. And it's kind of a vicious cycle with land degradation. And I imagine in southern Sudan and the whole area, we're seeing that.
Yeah, It's really interesting that all of you really say that the most important thing, or one of the most important things, is to approach the situation holistically, and that you cannot just like give up food and hope for the best, but like there needs to be perspective, and there needs to be to work around in a broader sense as well. But something that Suleiman just like mentioned, and we didn't mention before, and that's something that I also find to be really important. We've just talked about your amazing work that's really necessary in those situations, but what does the government actually do? Like all of them, the ones in the conflict regions, but also the international community, right? Is there demands that you, as humanitarian organizations, have for our governments? EU, UN, no, it's not really a government, but still, it's like the European one or the German one, even.
Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned this, because as you said, we were talking about the importance of the programmatic response, but there's of course another piece that is missing, and Suleiman mentioned it's for South Sudan, and that's the political pressure, and that's our advocacy work and our campaign work, and that's also, because systemic change is needed if we really want to tackle the problems, and we can work on the ground, and that we do, and that's utterly important. But of course, at the same time, my colleagues from the advocacy team and from the campaigns teams are working tirelessly to ask the government, the German government and the European Union to walk the talk and to follow through on what have already been agreed 5 years ago by the United Nations, that is condemning using hunger as a weapon of war, and that is prohibiting using landmines, destroying farms, destroying fields, blockages, and also attacks on humanitarian workers. And this is international law, and we now really ask the governments of the world to follow up and to really put it into policies and into concrete activities, and that's really also through storytelling we are doing it here, and that's why I'm really super thankful also for Ludwig for using also your experiences and sharing what you have experienced in South Sudan with the publics, because we need public pressure for that, and this is not happening on its own, and that's one of the most important aspects of our work here in Germany, and that's what we do.
Thank you so much for that. Do you, either of the other two who work in the field, want to add on that, or should we, because because otherwise I'd like to ask you,
Yes, I think I just want to add to what Elena said. I think, our approach is we are taking a different dimension to make sure that this happens. So first, we have to work very seriously in changing the mindset of the people. And we've also realized that, one of the major reasons for this conflict that is happening is because of resources, poverty. So as we are campaigning, we are doing a lot of advocacy, and our advocacy is not just at the community level. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, we just had a very high level roundtable discussion where we invited the vice president and some other stakeholder just to tell them about the impact of the food insecurity and also related to conflict. So we are sending this message, but also we are also working with people at the community level, the stakeholder, the authorities. 3 weeks ago, I came from GAT. We have a series of meetings with commissioners and other stakeholders, just for them to know first that the humanitarian needs is increasing, but the resources for us to really tackle these needs is decreasing. So for instance, South Sudan, we're supposed to raise 1.7 billion to respond to the humanitarian needs. As we speak now, we've only been able to secure 45% of that. Just imagine. This is beside the Sudan crisis and people coming in. So trying to do a lot of advocacy, first, give peace a chance, live in conflict, but at the same time, we are also trying to come up with strategic initiative that at the end of the day will change their mind and put also money in their pocket, because we believe, like for instance, the example I made about Pagwe, this community in Fangal, which was conflict prone, because young people in the community have started putting money in their pocket. I think it's changing the dynamic slowly. So we also now trying to scale up this, and this is the advocacy we are having with at national level, at the state level, at the county level, so that we can also help to bring peace to the region. So yes, a lot of advocacy is happening at different level, and like Elena said, our German team colleagues, they are actually the one taking leadership in this for the advocacy. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Ludwig, wir haben eben gehört, der humanitäre Bedarf nimmt zu, aber der internationale Support wird dem nicht gerecht. Was glaubst du, was kann die Öffentlichkeit noch mehr tun, auch um eben Druck auf Politik auszuüben? Wo siehst du die Position der Öffentlichkeit und deren möglichen Einfluss?
Also nochmal, ich glaube, um grundlegend etwas zu verändern im Land, ist natürlich in erster Linie auch natürlich wichtig, dass sich eine Regierung stabilisiert, ne? Um langfristig dort irgendwie was verändern zu können. Natürlich ist es total richtig, dass man dafür Sorge tragen muss, dass diese Krise so weit behoben wird, dass diese Menschen nicht leiden und dass ein Leben lebenswert ist. Und Menschen aufgrund vielleicht von Hunger und Krankheit einfach nicht sterben. Insofern ist es wichtig, da natürlich darauf aufmerksam zu machen und diese Menschen nicht zu vergessen. Was können wir tun? Was mir als erstes natürlich auch auffiel, ist sehr bewusst damit umzugehen, auch hier, und das kann jeder ganz umsonst tun, nachhaltiger zu leben, ne? Auch in Bezug auf den Klimawandel. Ne? Auch reflektiert im Umgang damit zu sein und das in gewissen Teilen auch zu überdenken, das eigene Verhalten. Ansonsten ist es natürlich wahnsinnig wichtig, darauf aufmerksam zu machen und Spenden zu generieren, ne, um den Menschen dort vor Ort die Möglichkeit zu geben, die Programme auszubauen, das Training auszubauen. Ich meine, es geht ja nicht nur um Ernährung, es geht auch darum, ein ganzes Bewusstsein zu schaffen. Also was man natürlich nicht machen sollte, ist in ein Land einzureiten und zu sagen, okay, ich verändere jetzt hier irgendwelche Traditionen. Das geht natürlich nicht. Aber natürlich war es auch spannend zu sehen, dass es Organisationen gibt, die versuchen, ein anderes Bewusstsein zu schaffen im zwischenmenschlichen Umgang, ne? Im Umgang miteinander. Und ja, und das ist wahrscheinlich zielführend für eine Weiterentwicklung oder für eine allgemeine Entwicklung, ne? Worauf man aufbauen kann. Dennoch denke ich auch, ist es natürlich wichtig, klar, mit Spendengeldern dort vielleicht auch weiterzugehen, ne, den Zugang zu Technik zu ermöglichen, vielleicht auch. Ich meine, wir sehen ja das WLAN-System, das wackelt dort ganz schön. Also ich meine, wie wichtig wäre vielleicht eine gute, ausgebaute Infrastruktur in dieser Hinsicht. Ne? Das ist meiner Ansicht nach, also Hilfe zur Selbsthilfe, ne, sich einfach auch darüber entwickeln zu können, indem man sich Dinge ergoogelt.
Ja, danke dir.
Ja, ja.
Vielleicht magst du noch mal ganz kurz, bevor wir die letzten 5 Minuten vielleicht noch nutzen können, um das Publikum mit reinzuholen, noch mal vielleicht ganz kurz deinen schönsten Moment von der Reise mit uns teilen? Gab es sowas?
Es gab sehr, sehr viele sehr, sehr schöne Momente. Ich habe eine Ziege geschenkt bekommen von einem Stamm. Ich muss ehrlicherweise gestehen, ich war sichtlich überfordert mit dem Tier und hatte auch Angst, dass man es eventuell für mich köpfen täte. In dem Fall ist es natürlich nicht passiert. Das passierte vorher mit einer Kuh, über die wir springen mussten, aber das ist Teil dieser Tradition. Damit muss man, glaube ich, umgehen lernen. nichtsdestotrotz war ich sehr überrascht und hatte auch ehrlich gesagt ganz schön große Angst. Aber wir haben diese Ziege gespendet an ein junges Mädchen, der es nicht so gut ging, da ihr etwas sehr Schlimmes 3 Wochen vor dem Treffen mit ihr widerfahren ist. Und als ich dann oder wir nach unserer Rückreise erfuhren, dass diese Ziege dieser Familie gespendet wurde, habe ich mich wirklich sehr, sehr gefreut. Und das war nach der Rückreise der wahrscheinlich allerschönste Moment für mich. Weil auch diese Ziege wird man wahrscheinlich nicht schlachten, aber sie wird eben produzieren und auch dieser Familie helfen, weiterzukommen. Und im Zuge dessen hatten wir ihr auch noch einen Ofen geschenkt, das heißt, beziehungsweise gespendet, sodass sie auch in die Infrastruktur wieder reinwachsen kann. Und das ist doch toll.
Also Brot und Milch.
Also wir alle, hä? Um Brot backen zu können, genau.
Ja.
Ja, also mit Kleinigkeiten kann man sehr viel erreichen dort. Und die Menschen, das muss ich auch noch sagen, sind massivst dankbar, wahnsinnig optimistisch und unglaublich positiv. Der größte Aufschlag, den ich bei meiner Rückreise hatte, war, dass das hier echt ganz anders ist, obwohl wir alles haben. Das hat auch sehr zum Denken angeregt. Die Menschen dort sind unglaublich, die haben doch eine ganz schöne Energie. Schön zu sehen, wie sehr sie am Leben klammern.
Danke dir.
Ja, gerne.
So I'm going to switch again, but I think we do still have a couple of minutes left for all of you to engage in this conversation if you'd like to. So if you have any questions to our panelists, now is the time, in either German or English, as you could have seen. But please keep in mind the topic of our talk tonight and maybe the expertise of our guests. So if a question comes up, now is the time to raise your hand. I can't see though.
Hi. Thank you very much for your talk. I really enjoyed it. I have a little bit of a complicated question, and I'm not entirely sure how to phrase it, but I think when I grew up in Berlin, I saw a lot of campaigns around, from UNICEF or Action Against Hunger, which had this very simplistic view on who are suffering from hunger. And mostly it was children with enlarged bellies, and it had this very kind of othering perspective towards subjects. And I think my question to you would be if, because this obviously also reflects on the self again, who are we in the West, who is them, the victims of suffering, and I think for campaigning, obviously, you need to raise awareness, but I think often this falls into pity, because pity is connected to innocence, and innocence in terms is connected to things such as not being angry. But I think a lot of the problems we're talking about are connected to politics and processes by the global North, and there's a lot of anger that's supposed to be there, but I feel like in those campaigns there's always this victimizing view and never really this actually, where is the justice in this? And I wanted to ask you, since I have this moment right now, if, I'm sure you're aware of this, but how do you respond to this? And how do you think campaigning can change in a way of giving space both for agency and for the need to get assistance? Thank you.
First and foremost, thank you. I think it's quite a broad topic as well that could be discussed in a lot more depth because it's really important, but maybe...
Of course, I'm absolutely aware of this debate and the discussions, and that has shaken our sector, I think, over the recent years. And if you take a more careful look, I think you would already see differences in how the people that we work with are portrayed in campaigns and in fundraising, but still we have not found the right, I think, balance or solution of how to, I wouldn't say how to raise the emotion of pity, but still you need to look for empathy and that this more classic traditional way was working for empathy and for fundraising, and is rightly, but it has rightly been challenged, of course. And I think lots of organizations in our sector, including Action Against Hunger, are really dealing right now with our colonial pasts also, and also reflecting on how to really become an anti-racist organization. So but we are not ready. We are not done, because we just started to have all these debates and reflections, and also really looking into everything we do with this lens, and try to get better. And I think the Human Rights Film Festival really is a fantastic, and has already been a fantastic platform for dealing with this question, how to find other narratives, how to develop further the storytelling we use as organizations. And I think that's fantastic, and we are really, as Action Against Hunger, happy to organize it and to talk with all of you about this and to become better. However, I think also the broader publics are not there yet, and I think, we need to sparkle this conversation and take it outside as well. So I think that's mostly my thinking right now, and but it's a huge topic, and it's a great question. Thank you for that. And,
thank you so much. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, because I do really think it's important, but I just got the notice that we're out of time. I thought we had 5 more minutes because we started a little later, but we can maybe follow up on that now one-to-one in a second as well. But now I just have to say goodbye, because I hope we can explore these questions individually in a second, and just engage in a meaningful dialogue as well. Thank you all so much for joining us in this critical conversation, which I think did open up a lot more topics than just like the one that was intended to, because it's like really everything's so much connected. And may our collective efforts contribute to a world where hunger is not a tool of war, but could and has to be overcome, really. And I'm really happy as well that I think we can conclude this night with a sense of shared responsibility, but as well a lot of hope, which also came up. So thank you also to the amazing panelists, to the technical people, and of course to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.